Okay.
Tonight we want to study the Rambam, as we always do on the Shir. But tonight we'll look at the Rambam regarding Ger Toshav. Let's just explain that there are three categories relating to a non-Jew. Three terms that define. And one of them is there's a seat over here. Yeah. Or stand over there. One of them is what we call an akum. You've seen that term. Oved kochavim umazols. There's another term which is called a nachri, or a goy. And there's a third term which is called ger toshav. The Ritva, following in the footsteps of the Ramban, in a number of different places in Shas, especially in Masech Makis, uses these three terms to indicate what is a guy. You know, we ask what is a Jew, but we never ask what is a guy. Right. That question we don't raise. But we should. And if we do raise that question, we'll probably come to the conclusion that an Oved Kochavu Mazolos is someone who's not observing the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Because one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach is idol worship, that he's enjoined from idol worship. So when we talk about an akum, that term is used for someone who is not, from a Jewish perspective, not considered a moral, upright citizen in terms of universal man. On the other end of the spectrum, we have what's called a ger toshav. A ger toshav is someone, although he's not part of the Jewish people, he's not a ger tzedek, he hasn't fully accepted the 613 mitzvahs, but yet he has accepted the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. And not only has he accepted upon himself the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach, but he does so because he believes they were given in the Torah, given to Moshe Rabbeinu. The halacha, and the Rambam brings it down, describes a process by which a guy becomes a ger toshav. He comes in front of a bezdin, not in the classical case of a ger tzedek to accept 613, but to accept how many mitzvahs? 7. But he does so as a formal process in front of a bezdin. And he says, I hereby declare an absolute commitment, I accept upon myself the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, because they were given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe at Har Sinai. That declaration gives him the status of ger toshav, and as we'll soon see, he gets certain rights and privileges within the Jewish fold, within the Jewish community, as a result of his new status as a ger toshav. In between the two extremes, not an akum and not a ger toshav, we have a guy. We can call him stam. Stam meaning he's not defined to one extreme or the other. His status is something that we want to study tonight by going through a number of Rambams, but the description of this person would be that he observes the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, but without a formal commitment. There was no Kabbalah's gerus, not in front of a bezdin and nowhere else. He may feel that they're rational, they make sense, he may observe them without violating them simply because that's what he does in life, without a formal intellectual pronouncement, declaration of gerus. And his status is in between. He's neither an akum in the negative sense, he's not a chote, nor is he what? Nor is he a ger toshav. He hasn't accepted his Zayin mitzvahs b'nei Noach as a Kabbalah b'fnei bezdin.
I don't understand. You said he's not a toshav, but he is a ger toshav. I don't get it.
The middle case. The middle case is someone who observes the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach without the formal acceptance of those mitzvahs because they were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. He observes the mitzvahs of Ben Noach simply because that's what he does. He's moral, he believes that makes sense, he doesn't like Avram and Achai, whatever it might be, but he's not interested in Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu. Not even as far as the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach.
Tonight we're talking about the fellow that comes before Beis Din. That's who we're talking about
tonight?
What
we're going to see is that there even with regard to the person who doesn't come before Beis Din, he still may have certain partial status as what? as a ger toshav. But again, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, because although the title for tonight is ger toshav,
the page is ger toshav.
Okay, we're going to see
I just want to make sure
that the concept of ger toshav is, in the Rambam's frame of reference, is a little bit different than what I presented you to. The presentation I've given up until this point is based on the Ritva, following in the footsteps of the Ramban. But our class is on the Rambam, so we wanted to get to know what the Rambam says. So let's take a look, first of all, at two psukim in the Torah. One in our parsha, this week's parsha that we read just 2 days ago, Parshas Bahar, and one in Parshas Re'eh that Amir Hashem will get to sometime in this, a little bit in the summertime. V'chiyamuch achicha umata yada imach v'chzakta bo. So we're talking about a Jew, a full-fledged Jew, who is financially wobbling. His situation is, is somewhat tenuous, and we have to strengthen him. We have to, if you will, catch him before he falls. And then the Torah says, ger v'toshav v'chei imach. A ger who's a toshav, or a ger kama a toshav, and we'll see how to read this pasuk later on, is in two different categories of one. V'chei imach, see to it that he lives with you, meaning support him. Okay, so here's the concept of a toshav. The first part of the pasuk refers to a full-fledged Jew, and the latter part of the pasuk, ger v'toshav v'chei imach, is referring to a ger toshav. In Parshas Re'eh, in Dvarim Perek Yud Daled, which you'll see as the second source on your page, the Torah is talking about what to do with a nevela. That means an animal that died without shechita. Well, what would you say we do with a nevela? Do we have to burn it? Do we have to destroy it? Throw it in compost? What do we have to do with it?
Give it to a kohen.
Why? Maybe it's also b'hana. So we have Isurei Hana. For example, chelev and dam and klaya kerem and basa b'chalav. All these are Isurei Hana. We have to destroy them. But nevela is mutar b'hana, and therefore, as you say very well, Michael, we give it to a guy. But look, which guy do we give it to? The Torah says the following: Lo sochlu kol nevela la ger asher bish arecha titnena. Interesting. We're talking about a ger who dwells in your land, in your midst, within your gates. If we're talking about a full-fledged ger tzedek, a Jew who accepted upon himself all of Taryag mitzvahs in a bezdin with all the process of gerus, then the Torah would not allow us to give him nevela. So obviously we can't be talking about a full-fledged Jew, and yet the Torah uses the word ger. So what non-Jewish person could be described by the appellation ger? Only a ger toshav. And yet the Torah went out of its way to tell us that we can feed him. Why? Because he's living amongst us. If he needs food, share it with him. V'yachlan, let him enjoy it. There's no Isur for a ger. It's not one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. I'm talking about a ger toshav, and therefore we'll share it with him. Or alternatively, if he's a nachri, meaning he's really a non-Jew who doesn't observe the Zayin mitzvah b'nei Noach, let's say, then you sell it to him. You don't want to give a gift to this kind of a guy. So let's see the Rambam now, which is really what we want to do tonight. But it's very important for me to share with you these two psukim, because what I want you to be sensitive to as we go through these Rambams is which pasuk is the Rambam going to rely on when he codifies the law. The first Rambam I want to look at with you is in the 14th perek of Hilchos Isurei Bia. The Rambam in the previous part of this perek, before we get to the end of the perek, or the middle of the perek, I should say, halacha zayin, halacha ches, has addressed the issue of a ger toshav. Earlier, he speaks in the earlier chapters about a full-fledged ger. Here he says, Ezu ger toshav. How do you define a ger toshav? Who qualifies under that category? Ze akum, Shekibel olav shelo yavod kochavim umazolos. He accepted upon himself to abstain from idol worship. Im shar ha-mitzvos shenitztavu b'nei Noach. Not only that, he accepted the other 6 mitzvos that were incumbent upon b'nei Noach. V'lo mal v'lo tova. But yet, he's not willing to undergo what? Mila and tefillah, which means what in a word? Gerus, full-fledged gerus. Harezim ekablim also. We will accept him because he has declared that he wants to abstain from the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. V'hu mechasidei umos ha'olam. And he's one of the pious people of the nations. V'lama nikra shmo toshav. Why does the Torah refer him to a ger toshav? Lefisha mutar lanu lo shivo beinenu be'eretz Yisrael. The Torah says lo tichonem. We're not meant to invite the goyim to live in a permanent way in the land of Israel. The land of Israel was given to the Jewish people. But who are we allowed to invite? Amongst the goyim, correct, the ger toshav. Kimoshe bi'arnu behilchos akum. As we've explained in the laws of Avodas Kochavim. So you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to have to open up Hilchos Avodas Kochavim to figure out which guy are we enjoined from selling land to or granting a dwelling place, a domicile in Israel, and which guy is considered a ger toshav and we're allowed to invite him into Eretz Yisrael. And I'm almost tempted at this point in our discussion, at this juncture, to jump to Hilchos Avodas Kochavim Mazolos in order to get an answer to this question. But, of course, the Rambam has already told us, Kimoshe bi'arnu be'Hilchos Avodas Kochavim. It's like a footnote on that the Rambam is sending you elsewhere. But before I do that, I'm going to read with you Halacha Ches. Because usually when we read 2 halachas, we get a broader picture of what's going on. So the Rambam says the following in Halacha Ches: V'ein mekablim ger toshav ela bizman shayovel noheg havel bizman hazeh afilu kibul olav kol Torah kula. Even if he accepts upon himself the entire Torah, ein mekablim also. The Rambam says, and maybe we'll get to look into some of the sources of the Rambam, but we'll accept it right now as a premise, as a working operative premise, that we cannot accept a ger toshav except during the period of time that Yovel was noheg. Now, does anybody know what periods in Jewish history Yovel was noheg?
Yes.
Go ahead, Yechiel. What do you say?
Yovel was when the Beis Hamikdash stood, and that means not in the 70 years in between. And then there's a Shiloh when the 2.5 tribes are exiled, whether we had Yovel during that period. I think I heard that on a shirt from somebody this year.
Right. Okay, good. So, one thing is clear. With regard to Yovel, we need what's called Yoshvel Aleha. In other words, when the Jewish people settle the land and they live therein, then and only then is the mitzvah of Yohel Noheges. So, for example, between Bais Rishon and Bais Sheni, there was 70-year period of Golus, no Yovel. After the second Bais was destroyed, no Yovel. Even during the 14 years of Kibush V'Chiluk, when Yoshua entered into the land and conquered and divided it, no Yovel. Because the settlement of Israel has not yet been clinched. Now, Yechiel is mentioning an issue, which is a gigantic issue in Hilchos Yovel. At the period, at the end of Bayis Rishon, not all the Jewish people were living in Eretz Yisrael. 2.5 Shvatim had already been thrown out of Eivra Yarden. That's Gad, that's Menashe and Gad, and Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shev Menashe. They were exiled by Sancheriv. And yet the Rambam seems to indicate that there was Yovel even during that period. But that's for a different sheet. Be that as it may, the halacha of ger toshav, says the Rambam, the formal acceptance in front of a bezdin of a non-Jew of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, because they were given by Moshe at Har Sinai, that process is contingent upon what, says the Rambam? Upon Yovel. Bizman hazeh, we don't have Yovel. Unfortunately. Hopefully we'll have it soon. We don't have, therefore, the possibility of creating a ger toshav. And that's the picture I get. No, so let me turn back to my original question. Can I invite a non-Jew to live in Eretz Yisrael? You know, this is a very hot topic these days. Selling property to Arabs in Israel. So first, let's talk about two simple questions about which there can be no answer. No question about the answer. Number one, supposing this guy is an idol worshiper, or he's a murderer, or he violates any of the other six mitzvahs b'nei Noach. What would you say about him? Can't let him live in Eretz Yisrael. He's a bad influence, we'll call him. Okay? Now let's take the other extreme. What about a Ger Toshav at the time of Yovel? He came in front of a Beis Din, formally accepted the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach because they were given to Moshe at Har Sinai. He's a Ger Toshav, says the Rambam, in Perek Yudal Milchas Akum. We're allowed to invite him to live amongst us in Eretz Yisrael. Then we have the gray area in between these two extremes. And what's that? That's the case of a guy, not an Akum. You remember we discussed before the Ritva and the Ramban. He does not violate any of the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach. He's an upstanding citizen according to the halachos that we have, but not for the right reasons. He hasn't accepted it formally. What's his status? Can we invite him in to live in Eretz Yisrael? The Rambam says that today we don't have a Ger Toshav. Because in order to have a Ger Toshav, what do we need? Yovel. No? So today we can't invite any guy to live in Eretz Yisrael. That would be the impression I would get. Until I take a look at another Rambam, because you remember that the Rambam in Hilchos Avodas Kochavim is meant to shed a light on what the Rambam wrote in Hilchos Isurei Bia. The Rambam himself tells you, check me out in Hilchos Avodas Kochavim. So that's exactly what we want to do. And now you look at the third source on your page, which is the Rambam in Perek Yud Hilchos Avodas Kochavim, and we'll see how that sheds a light on the Rambam that we did in Perek Yudal Hilchos Isurei Bia. Says the Rambam, Ein kol advarim elu amurim el bizman shegolu Yisrael lebein hovdei kochavim o sheyad akum tkifa al Yisrael. We can't prevent the goyim from living wherever they want to live because we don't have any sovereign control over Eretz Yisrael. Avol bizman, but in a period of Jewish history. Sheyad Yisrael T'keif Aleim, we have the sovereign upper rule. Asar lanu laniach ovdei kocham beinenu. We cannot invite the idol worshipping goyim to live amongst us in Israel. Va'afilu Yoshev Yeshiva Saroy. What about renting? Maybe he's in transit, he's moving, he's not permanent. Over Makom Makom B'schora, maybe he's a businessman. No. Elo ad sheyikabel olav sheva mitzvos shenitztavu b'nei Noach. Says the Rambam, we need him to become what? A Ger Toshav. Then we're going to allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael. How does he become a Ger Toshav? The Rambam says he accepts upon himself the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And im kibel all of Zion mitzvahs hareza Ger Toshav. And then the Rambam adds, v'ein mekablim Ger Toshav el bizman shayovel noeg, aval shelo bizman hayovel ein mekablim el gerei tzedek bilvad. Let's look at the second comment of the Ravid. You'll notice on your page 2 comments of the Ravid. We're going to look at the second. Aval shelo bizman hayovel ein mekablim el ger tzedek bilvad. Omar Avram Eini Mashvelo B'Yeshivas Ha'aretz. I agree with the Rambam. On the one hand, there's no possibility of accepting a Ger Toshav in our time because there's no Yovel. But I disagree with the Rambam that therefore we can't let any non-Jew live in Eretz Yisrael.
Well, why are they saying they don't accept because there's no Yovel? Why don't you just say they don't accept because there can't be a Ger Toshav?
No, we have a Ger Tzedek. It means a Ger could come, a non-Jew could come in front of a Jewish court and accept upon himself Taryag mitzvahs. Why can't he come in front of the same court and accept 7 mitzvahs? We'll make him into a Ger Toshav. The answer is that Ger Toshav operates with a specific contingency. We need what? Yovel. The Ravid seems to agree. You need Yovel in order to have a Ger Toshav, that Kabbalah's Gerus, but the Ravid says we can still allow these non-Jews to live in Eretz Yisrael even today. Why? So the Kesef Mishnah comes to elaborate on the Rambam and the Rambam. The Ravid and the Rambam. He says, Kosev Ravid, etc. Omal Taimo. What's the reason that underlies this comment to the Ravid? Lomar, Shafal Pishay Mekabel Gertoshav, Bisman Shein Ayovel Noheg, Im Kibel Sheva Mitzvos. Lama Yimnu Osom Yeshiva Baretz. The Ravid is bothered. Why can't this guy be left amongst us, to live amongst us in Eretz Yisrael? What are you going to say? He's going to have a bad what? Influence on us. He's an idol worshiper? No, he's not an idol worshiper. He's observing the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Technically, formally, has he accepted it in front of a Beis Din? No. As part of a process of Gerus? We don't have that. We don't have the Ovel. But the Ravid says, why can't we invite him in? Why do we have to push him out? There's no reason in such a case to be afraid that maybe he'll bring sin into the land. He's not sinning. Uledas Rabbeinu, please underline these words. The Ravid has presented his thesis. Now let's give the Rambam a chance. Says the Kesef Mishnah, Niroloma Deinochinami, She'imei Atzmo Kibel Olav Sheva Mitzvahs. If on his own initiative he accepts the 7 mitzvahs, she'ein monin oso mi yeshiva ba'aretz, v'lo balomar el she'ein beis din mekabelin oso. All the Rambam meant to say was that the formal process of gerus, in which beis din accepts a non-Jew as a ger toshav, cannot apply in our time because we don't have Yovel. But the Rambam doesn't mean, therefore, that we can't allow them to live in Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam embraces the Ravid Shita. The Ravid accused the Rambam of something that the Rambam never held, and the position of the Rambam would be the following: as long as he's not an Aku, even if he's not a Ger Toshav, technically, formally, without a Yovel today, but if he's in this middle category, he's observing what? We can allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael, because the whole reason we have to leave him out of Eretz Yisrael is Pen Yachtiu. Who can translate for me Pen Yachtiu?
They turn us away.
No, Pen Yachtiu will cause us to sin. He has a bad, rotten influence. You know, if you have a bunch of apples and you throw in a rotten apple, it can spoil the whole bunch. But this non-Jew is observing Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. There's no reason that we should exclude him from Eretz Yisrael.
Is that the Ravid or the Rambam?
This is the Rambam according to Kesef Mishnah.
According to Kesef.
Yeah, okay, now maybe we can reinterpret the Rambam. But let's, for the time being, grant the premise of the Kesef Mishnah. If his interpretation is correct, we now flip back to the original source that we began with in the Rambam, Hilchos Yisur Bia Perek Yud Dalet, and the Rambam says that as far as a Ger Toshav is concerned, the mitzvah of supporting him applies. And we can invite him to live in Eretz Yisrael. That was Halacha Zayin. You remember the end of Halacha Zayin where the Rambam says, K'moshe bi'arnu b'Hilchos Akum. We looked it up. We did the research that the Rambam asked us to. We went back to Hilchos Akum, and we found in Perek Yud Hilchos Akum, the way the Kesef Mishnah interprets the Rambam, that lo and behold, if he's in this middle category, he's neither a sinner nor a Ger Toshav, but he observes the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, we can accept him into Eretz Yisrael. So then what's Halacha Vav? Halacha Ches. In the very next Halacha Ches, the Rabbi says, Ein mekabel ger toshav, el bizman shayovel noeg. That's pretty odd. The Rambam is contradicting himself from Halacha Zayin to Halacha Ches. And Halacha Zayin, he indicates, as the Kesef Mishnah would claim, that even though he's not a ger toshav, nevertheless, he has the stats of a ger toshav as far as what? We can allow him to live. Everybody, where? In Eretz Yisrael. And then Halacha Ches, the Rambam turns around, he says, no. Technical, there's no Ger Toshav Bizman Hazeh because we don't have the Ovel. Well, what's going on over here? The Rambam in Hilchos Yisur Bia is addressing the issue of whether we can allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael. So the Rambam himself is committed to the position that we can allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael. So why does he turn around and say, but no, there's no Ger Toshav Bizman Hazeh? Rabbos, I want to tell you the plot grows thicker. Let's look at the third Rambam on your page. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim Perek Yud Halacha Yud says that Ben Noach sheratzo lasos mitzvah mishar mitzvah Torah k'dei lekabel schar ein monin oso milasosa kilchasa. If a guy wants to observe the mitzvah Torah, we won't prevent him from doing so. If he wants to bring a carbon, makabel menu. Nosan staka, the guy wants to contribute. This is very important for many institutions. They accept contributions from non-Jews. This is the basis for it right here in the Rambam Hilchos Malachim Perek Yud. Are you excited about this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled about this. I mean, this is very important.
But we can't bring an Ola today.
Okay, we'll let them bring an Olo when the Mikdash is built, but right now, we got to know whether we can accept that staka. But V'yira Li, the Rambam says, Shenosno Solaniya Yisrael. We should try as best as we can to channel this charity that we're accepting, the staka from a non-Jew, to Jewish causes. You know, a lot of people take these gifts, and who knows what they do with them. But that's not the way the Rambam sees it. Then the Rambam says, "V'hoil v'u nizon miyisrael mitzvah aleihem lachyoso." Since we support him, we can use his funds to support our poor people. So a non-Jew gives money to a Jewish organization, we can use that money, funnel it and channel it towards Aniyei Yisrael. Aval ha'akum shenosan staka. What about a non-observant akum? What does I mean, a non-observant akum?
Doesn't observe the Shepa mitzvahs.
For example, what would be the most extreme case? Kishma, akum. What does akum mean? He observes.
He
worships. No, he doesn't observe, meaning he worships what? Idols. The Rambam says, he's outside our pale. We're going to channel that money to his people. We're not going to use it for our people. Okay? Then the Rambam says the following, in Allah Yud Beis. V'chein yiroeli, whenever the Rambam says yiroeli, it seems to me I got to perk up your ears. The Rambam is telling you a chidush, his own insight. Shenoagim im gerei toshav b'derech eretz ugmilus chasodim. Wow. This is a very dramatic Rambam. Our relationship to gerei toshav is going to be with derech eretz, with a sense of concern. Gemilus chasodim. What's gemilus chasodim, my friends? We can extend a helping hand. Rabbosai, is this a chiddush to you? That the Rambam holds that ger toshav is within the perspective, within the how should I say, the club of those to whom we grant gemilus chasodim. And then the Rambam adds another word, Ki Yisrael. Please underline that word, Ki Yisrael. We treat them, as far as Chesed is concerned, Ki Yisrael. Sharei anu mitzuvim lahachyosan. Our relationship to Gerei Toshav is that we are commanded to give them life, to sustain them. Shenemar lager asher b'sharecha titnena v'yachla. Okay, now I'm giving out gifts. Who can tell me where that pasuk is? Lager asher b'sharecha titnena.
We just read it up above.
Correct, in Parshas Re'eh. It's not the Parsha in Bahar that we read 2 days ago.
You got both at the top of the page here.
Okay, good. Now, by the way, I want to ask you a question here. We know that when we read the Rambam is addressing our halacha bizman hazeh, as it applies practically, and we can implement it in our time.
Right.
Unless the Rambam tells us otherwise, and he qualifies. Or something. He doesn't qualify it here. So what's the impression, halacha l'maisa, according to the Rambam, with regard to goyim? Do we support them? Is there gemilus chasodim that we'll share with them? Do whatever we can to give them support and health and sustenance?
Well, with Akum, we just take their charity money and we give it to other poor Akum.
Okay, that's as far as Akum is concerned.
But with regards to these good guys...
What are they called in the Rambam? The terminology is very important.
What do they call them? Ger Toshav.
Ger Toshav. In what historical period?
Seems to be open-ended here.
Correct. He's addressing our period, Bizman Hazeh. Wait a minute. Didn't the Rambam tell us that there's no Ger Toshav Bizman Hazeh?
Not quite. But
Not quite.
It seemed
Okay, good,
way.
you feel. I want you to hold on to this question because I know that you're going to figure out the answer. But first, I want to see one more Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Chiyuv Matana Per Gimel, Asur LiYisrael Litain Li'aku Matnas Chinam. You're not allowed to grant gifts to idol worshippers. Aval no sein hu l'ger toshav, but you're allowed to give a gift to a ger toshav. Shenemar lager asher b'sharechet titnena v'yachla. Where is that parsha again? We just saw it earlier in the Rambam in Perek Yud Milchus Malachim. It's in Parshas Re'eh. But then look at the end of this Rambam. He says, "Aval ger toshav be'im mechir be'im nesinim v'nei shata mitzuva lach yoso." All of a sudden, the Rambam says, "Atam mitzuva lach yoso." Not just that you're allowed to give him a gift, if need be, but that you're obligated actively to see to it that he lives. Shenemar ger v'toshav v'cheimach. Wait a minute, where is this pasuk, my friends? In Parshas?
That's in Bahar.
Bahar. Why did the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Yud, Halacha Yud Beis, quote the pasuk? In Parshas Re'eh, la ger asher b'sharechet titnena. And not only that, here in Hilchos Chiyuv Matana Per Gimel, he quotes the pasuk in Re'eh, but then he's compelled to add another pasuk, namely he quotes Parshas Bahar, ger v'toshav v'cheimach. Very strange. The Rambam seems to be operating with two different sources, and why? So if you take a look in the Ramban in Sefer HaMitzvos, Mitzvahs Hasei Tezayin, this is the list of the enumeration of mitzvahs which the Ramban accuses the Rambam of having omitted from his counting in the Sefer Mitzvah Tayan. Lahachios ger toshav, lahatzil lo mira also, save him from any impending doom. Shivaya tovea bin nahar, you see a non-Jew who's drowning. Oh, nafal of a gal, or a debris fell on him and he's buried under the debris. Like we see today in all these cases of tsunamis and all these terrible tragedies and catastrophes. Shebekol kochenu nitrach lat batzalah, so we should do whatever we can to save him. You know, this is no gaya to all sorts of hatzalah groups today. Or in New York, they have something called chaverim. I know they have it here in Toronto too. Chaverim, these are people who you can call on any time of day and night, and they'll send someone to bail you out. So what about non-Jews? And if he's deathly ill, we have to take care of him. We have to bring him back to good health. And how much more so in the case of a Jew or a Ger Tzedek. And what pasuk does the Ramban quote for this mitzvah? That I have to go out of my way to save a non-Jew because he's a ger toshav. He quotes the pasuk, ger v'soshav v'chei imach. See to it that he lives with you. Why didn't the Ramban quote the pasuk like ger asher b'sharechet titnena from Parshas Re'eh? Instead he quotes Parshas Bahar. But my friends, let's take a very careful look at this Ramban. I'm going to give you a choice decision here. You'll have to make the right choice for me. What mitzvah is the Ramban deriving from the pasuk v'chei imach, ger v'soshav v'chei imach? Is it A or B? Is it A, the mitzvah to support him, to consider him like a Jew, to give him chesed, to go out of your way and bestow upon him gifts? Or is he deriving the mitzvah that if he's drowning, if he's dying, if he's sick in bed, deathly ill, you have to do whatever you can in your power to save him?
Seems like the latter.
The latter, correct. Oh. If this be the case, and here I want to quote a sefer, Od Yosef B'ni Chai. This is a sefer that was written by Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, Zichron DOV, my Rebbe's brother. And the title is very interesting. Od Yosef B'ni Chai. He lost Nebuch a grandson by the name of Yosef. A young boy, I think he was about 10 years old. And in his memory, he wrote this book. And he used the pasuk that applies to Yosef when they came and they told Father Jacob that Yosef is still alive. Yaakov Avinu thought he was gone for years. Yaakov declares, Od Yosef B'ni Chai. And the whole purpose here is that through this Torah, in a sense, Rav Aaron was resurrecting, so to speak, his grandson to make him into a living person, because Svasov Dov Vos Baker. Anyway, says Rabbi in the following. There are two categories of a Ger Toshav, and there are two distinct halachos that apply to a Ger Toshav, and we should never mix the two. One halacha, one mitzvah that is incumbent upon the Jewish people vis-a-vis a Ger Toshav or Gerei Toshavim is to go all the way out, actively, to support them, to feed them, to give them Gemilas Chasodim, tzedakah, gifts, to treat them as a Jew. That's one dimension of Ger Toshav. And then there's another dimension of Ger Toshav. And that is to guarantee that the Ger Toshav is alive. If his life is in danger, we have to save him from danger. So Rabbi Aaron says that these two mitzvahs derive from two different parashas in the Torah. Parshas Bahar, which is the parsha that we just read, La Ger Asher B'Sharecha Titnena, is going very, very far. It's telling us that we bestow gifts upon a Ger Toshav, that we treat them as one of the Jewish people. We give chesed to them. But then there's a different parsha of the Torah. And that parsha is in Re'eh. And there it says, V'chei imach. Ger v'sosha v'chei imach.
I think you mixed it up.
Okay, we'll get back to it in a second. You feel we'll see.
Because Bahar is Chei Imach, and Re'eh.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Ger Asher B'Sharecha.
So in Bahar it says V'chei imach. You're right, so I stand correct. So what's the difference between the two? Again, it's not like Ger Asher B'Sharecha Titnen and Re'eh, bestowing gifts upon him. It's only V'chei imach. What's the subject of V'chei imach? Guaranteeing that he live with you, and not what?
Not die.
Not die. So his life is
Essential.
Is it? No, and I'm saying, what's the status of this guy? What situation does he find himself in? And the Torah says, V'chei imach.
But you have to make sure he's alive.
Right, because what's his situation? How would you describe, what adjective would you give to describe this guy?
He's in danger.
He's in danger, exactly.
Right.
His life is in jeopardy. Notice that when the Ramban formulates the mitzvah to save a Ger Toshav from death by jumping into the river and saving him, by administering medical help, by digging him out of the debris that fell upon him, which pasuk does the Ramban quote?
Chei Imach, Bahar.
V'chei imach, Parshas Bahar, our parsha. Because here the Ramban is addressing the mitzvah of saving a Ger Toshav from impending doom, from death. But the Rambam, if you go back to the Rambam, when he speaks about mitzvah aleim lach yoso, which is the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Yud Halacha Yud Beis, the Rambam says, Yirah li shenoagim in gerei toshav b'derech eretz ugmilus chasodim ki Yisrael. The Rambam is talking about an entirely different mitzvah, not saving him from impending death, but rather what? Bestowing chesed upon him, considering him as a Yisrael. Look at that word that I asked you to underline before, ki Yisrael. And which pasuk does the Rambam quote now? Not the same pasuk as the Ramban, V'chei imach, but rather the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh, says the Rambam, Shenemar la ger asher b'shrecha titnena. Titnena means shower upon him gifts. Share your wealth with him. Give him tzedakah money. Express your love to him like you do to a Jew with Gemilas Chasodim. Why couldn't the Rambam have quoted the pasuk in Parshas Bahar, V'chei imach? Would that have justified the Rambam's conclusion? No, that would only justify that we have to save him from death. But it wouldn't tell us that therefore we're commanded towards this Ger Toshav to give him chasodim, to give him tzedakah, to give him gifts. For that the Rambam needs a separate parsha, namely the parsha of La Ger Asher B'Sharecha Titneno. And now let's take a look at the Rambam in Hilchos Chiyuv Matana. The Rambam says in Perek Gimel Halacha Yud Aleph, he says you're allowed to give him a matnas chinam. You can bestow upon him gifts. Why? Because he's a ger toshav. She'nemar la ger asher b'sharecha titnena. Here the Rambam, in terms of giving gifts to a non-Jew, he must be talking about a ger toshav under the parsha of Re'eh, of la ger asher b'sharecha titnena, bestow gifts upon him. If this be the case, then maybe we can reconcile the contradiction in the Rambam that we began with. What's the status of a non-Jew today? The Rambam in Hilchas Akum says, according to the Kesef Mishnah, like the Ravid, that if he observes the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, even though formally he hasn't accepted his gerus in front of him, Beis Din, for that we need Yovel, then we can allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael. He has the status of a ger toshav. Yet the Rambam himself in Hilchas Yisrei Bia, in Perek Yudalad Halacha Ches, says Ein Mekavlim ger toshav el bisman sheyovel noe. But bisman said we don't have a ger toshav. And what's going to be the answer? That there are 2 dinim of a ger toshav. There's one definition of a ger toshav for the mitzvah of lachyosa, to save his life, to allow him to live in Eretz Yisrael. There's another definition of a ger toshav that generates a chiyuv chesed, of matana, of tzedakah vis-a-vis the ger toshav. What would be the status of a ger toshav bisman hazeh? A ger toshav in our time has not accepted his gerus in front of a Beis Din. We don't have Yovel, so we can't create a ger toshav. Therefore, the mitzvah of chesed and tzedakah, the mitzvah of treating him as a Jew, could not apply. In other words, the parsha that we saw in Re'eh, la ger asher b'sharecha titnena, bestow gifts upon him, that, says the Rambam, is contingent upon the full-fledged chalushem ger toshav, which is contingent upon Yovel. However, there's another parsha of ger toshav that generates its own mitzvah, and that's the parsha bahar of a chei imach ger v'toshav. Here the definition of a ger toshav is the same identical definition as the one which the Rambam applies to the question of allowing the non-Jew to live amongst the Jewish people in Israel. Says the Kesef Mishnah, if he's not a machti, if he observes the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, and there's no influence, there's no negative influence on the rest of the Jewish people in the land, we can let him live in the land, we can invite him to join us. He's a ger toshav. He's not a ger toshav. Technically, there was no Kabbalah if they Beis Din because we don't have Yovel. The answer is, that's not the mitzvah that we're talking about. The mitzvah that we're talking about of lachyosa v'chei imach only requires the basic definition of a ger toshav, means that he abstains from violating any of the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noah. So therefore, all the questions about selling land to non-Jews today, according to this presentation of Rabbi Aaron, will depend upon whether we assume that these non-Jews that we're selling land to are observing the Zion mitzvahs. Take, for example, the issue of Christianity. If you have a religious Christian, a Catholic, now we have to ask if that's Avodah Zarah. You know, the Trinity and all this, if we come to the conclusion that's Avodah Zarah, then he has a din of an akum. He's a chotei u'machti, we have to keep him out of the land of Israel. But let's say we talk about Arabs that believe in one God and they observe the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach, maybe not for the not right reasons. You know, maybe they got it from Mohammed, they didn't believe in Moses, I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But then according to this presentation, the Isur of inviting them to live in Eretz would not apply. And now let's get a different question. What do we do with monies that are dedicated to Jewish causes by non-Jews? What do we do with that? Can we use it for Jewish causes? Or should we dedicate it to non-Jewish causes? And the answer is, it depends what kind of go you're talking about. If you talk about an akum, what's an akum?
Hold on a second, but we're talking about what we're supposed to do to the goy, and now you're saying what we're...
Okay, so again, let's go through 2 paragraphs. First of all, Michael, the question of what we're supposed to do to the goy.
Right.
Are we supposed to save him, or are we supposed to bestow upon him all the goods and share our wealth with him and do a chesed? He calls you up in the middle of the night. He has a flat tire. He's out on 401 and so forth. So he can come out and help.
Depends which parsha we're going to follow.
Correct. So according to this, if you're talking about a non-Jew who worships idols, or he's a murderer, he's a thief, he's a no-goodnik, then neither of those two mitzvahs apply. If you're talking about a non-Jew during the time of Yovel, if we turn the clock back, and he said in front of a Bezdin, I hereby declare that I accept 7 mitzvahs, then not only would I save him from chas v'shalom death, I would even go out in the middle of the night to change his tire. I wouldn't even charge him for it. He's a full-fledged Ger Toshav. But what do we do with the Ger Toshav who's in the middle category? Do you follow me, Byron? He's in the, what I call the twilight zone, in betwixt. He's not a Ger Toshav in the formal sense. We don't have Yovel. But on the other hand, he's not an Akum. He doesn't violate Zayin Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. How do I treat him? So what we're suggesting now is, as far as the mitzvah of V'chei Imach, the mitzvah in Parshas Bahar, he would be included, because he's a guy who observes the 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach. You want to include him in the parsha of a ger asher b'sharecha titnena and bestow gifts upon him, lavish chesed upon him. For that you need a full-fledged ger toshav, which is contingent upon Yovel. The fact that he doesn't violate any of the Zayin mitzvahs, he observes them, is not sufficient. That was paragraph number 1. Paragraph number 2. What about inviting a non-Jew to live, to take up domicile within the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael? And the answer is, once again, according to this presentation, as we see that the Rambam in Hilchas Yisur Bir, Perek Yudal Halacha Zayin, is talking about a ger toshav without the formal Kabbalah. He simply prevents himself and abstains from any violation of 7 mitzvahs b'nai noach. The Rambam allows him to take up domicile, because the way the Kesef Mishnah understands the Rambam, he's not a chota yumachti. So if you ask me, can I sell land to a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael today, in our time, according to Rabbi Aaron's understanding, based on the Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam? The answer is, it depends what kind of guy he is. If he's an akum, the answer is no. If he's a full-fledged ger toshav, the answer is, of course you can. That's what the Torah tells you. If he's a ger toshav in that partial sense, like our geri toshav today that abstained from violating Zayin mitzvahs, but he hasn't had a formal acceptance, then I still think that we could accept him in to the bounds of Eretz Yisrael.